What's going on, folks? This is Asteroid. So I'm going to review Blink-182's third album. This album came out in 1999 and it's called Enema, the State. Now, Blink-182 had some success with their 1997 album Dude Ranch and the radio hit Damn It, and they wound up getting on the Warped Tour and touring for a while. And then for this album, they hooked up with punk rock producer Jerry Finn, who had worked on albums like Green Day's Dookie from 1994, which was a smash hit album. And basically, this album is pretty well put together. It's probably one of their most successful. I want to say that it went like 2 or 3 times platinum, something around there, maybe even 4 times platinum, something like that. And it has some career highlights for them in like All the Small Things and What's My Age Again. So this is like a perfect, poignant kind of energy that Blink 182 had, because it gave off like this getting ready to go to college kind of punk rock type feel, just with a lot of kind of breezy and just kind of tongue-in-cheek, happy-go-lucky, plucky kind of songs on here that just kind of deal with a lot of just like traverse and that type of stuff. I mean, that's something I typically like of Blink 182. I've only reviewed one other album by them, which was their album 9, but I do like this album pretty well also. It's definitely up there with it, and I do feel like there's some good stuff on here in terms of like the attitude of just it feels like you've got something to do. I like it. They're very busy sounding. I like the concept as if you've got something to do, whether it's school, dates, like a job that you don't get too caught up in, but you do have to do. Just something in that department where you've got your plate set out in front of you, but you still manage to have a good time and kind of juggle it well. To me, I look at this album as an album where you're juggling all your issues and situations in life well, and just have a good understanding of that. It's a pretty solitary album for such a thing, and there are some different topics on here. It's not just a complete hop and bop, but I do kind of feel like it's, for the most part, it's a pretty just breezy and overall springy, summery kind of album. So I would have to say, I'll go ahead and talk about the singles now. So the first single was What's My Age Again. This is pretty distinct. I definitely feel like this is one of Blink 182's most distinct songs. Has a pretty very catchy hook, and I could see this being played on like MTV and VH1 and some of those channels just back in the music video days when you would have heard it. It just seemed like an earworm for that sort of thing. What's My Age Again is a song about kind of being immature and not really having much of a care, and kind of being nonchalant a little bit and just kind of going about just another breezy kind of song that just is kind of more concerned about just playing pranks and that type of stuff on your date or your date's family, that your date or your date's family, something like that. It just kind of has the context of just being more lighthearted and just kind of the concept. I mean, the hook really, I mean, yeah, it just feels like just being young in your 20s, that type of stuff. Simple enough song. It's pretty recreational. It's an easy song to kind of vibe out to and kind of bop for the summer. I could see it being like a pretty large summer song back in the day. This kind of pretty fraternizing type song. Just an easy kind of mild party song. Like, I think I remember talking about this song being like a Thursday night song. I remember saying that it was kind of, to me, more of a mild party song, where I feel like All the Small Things is kind of like the more lit up, kind of bona fide party song. But this is kind of like it's a party song in a sense, but not quite as crazy as like the other one. I feel like that's kind of the concept, where they just had like 2 songs in kind of like a 1-2 punch for that sort of thing, as far as trying to get that kind of emotion, and just kind of having the enjoyment of this. I mean, because this album is pretty brief. I mean, I feel like in terms of that, I really would have expected them to have had a fourth single, and I'm surprised that they didn't attempt to do it. But for what it was, I do feel like this one, I feel like this one will pretty much always play second fiddle to All the Small Things, just because as good as like the energy on the song kind of is, it still is not quite as crazy as All the Small Things. I feel like if they would have had another song as crazy as these 2 songs, I definitely would have felt like it would have gotten pretty off the meter. But that's why I feel like this record was probably 3 times platinum as opposed to like 6 or 7 times platinum, like so many punk albums from that time, like Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park and some of that type stuff. Is just because they just kind of pulled their punches with this record. I felt like they definitely could have, if they would have just had one more hit, that probably would have pushed it over the edge. But it is a good song. The second single is All the Small Things. And this is pretty notable. I feel like this is one of the most inescapable Blink 182 songs. I mean, it's been played in like movie credits and that type stuff. It's in commercials. You hear it plenty of times on the radio, that type thing. Pretty just definable chorus. It's just one of those kind of overly hammy just because of the energy behind it. Just when they're like, turn the lights off, carry me home, just that sort of stuff where it's just, I mean, this song is kind of like a high tempo kind of song, but it kind of gets kind of larger than life and kind of the energy. It gets almost in the territory of hammy just because of like the chorus in some stages, but it's just a good song. It's just a real feel good. Feels like it could be played at graduations and celebrations and just overall kind of situations like that, just places where you'd have like some sort of festivities and kind of have that sort of atmosphere kind of happening, weddings and like things of that nature, as far as that kind of goes. But it's just kind of underneath the impression that I do like this song quite a bit, but it's almost like you would think almost like a parody in terms of the context of like how popular this song is, because it's just like it's so notifiable. I mean, really, if Blink 182 would have had another song like this, I definitely would have, like I said, this album probably would have went even further multi-platinum, because this is just how good this song is. It's pretty much like, I would say maybe not I don't want to full blown say it's the best song on this album. It's the most distinct just in terms of that. So that's definitely kind of the thing there. That just kind of happens to be the impression towards it. The third single is Adam's Song, and this one kind of flips the energy a little bit and gets more serious. And this one's kind of about suicide and depression and being in a funk and that type of stuff. But really, in the verses, it's actually kind of peppy. So I like this song. It just kind of feels more of just like a bluesy kind of song, something that you listen to when you just maybe had a bad day or just kind of a little bit fed up, that type of stuff. Just kind of in that context where I think the degree to this song, considering that this song kind of feels like a song that would be more intended for a bad day, and this kind of, I mean, I know that the topic of depression and suicide is a part of the theme of the song, but it just doesn't feel like that bad of like a trip for me in terms of like really being that morbid about it. I mean, even if you're listening to the lyrics, which are kind of, serious in there, I still kind of feel like, to me, it just feels like a depressed kind of teenager in the song who's just kind of bummed out for the day, and this is kind of the concept about it. But I look after it, just the fact that the energy is kept peppy, and you look at that context behind it, and you have to say that it does have like a nice kind of mildly upbeat vibe to just kind of say it's just about, still stepping out, still enjoying yourself, just kind of maybe you're a little bit pissed off, but it's just kind of like you just shrug about it kind of thing. And I like that context about it. But like I said, the rest of this album is a pretty peppy trip. I definitely feel like it just feels like you've got like some traverse about you, and just it's an album to kind of get stuff done. It's definitely a motivated album. It's not. I do like that despite the fact that they give off this kind of slacker vibe, they're actually not that much as slackers. It does kind of feel like they handle their BI and that type of stuff, and they manage to do it, and they go about their day and they get their bills paid and that type of stuff. So it's just kind of the concept of just being functioning and being able to kind of do it and enjoy yourself as far as that's kind of concerned. So I just like that context. There's songs. I'll go ahead and talk about the 8 songs I recommend. So out of 12 songs, there are 8 that I recommend. So I'll go ahead and list these. They would be Don't Leave Me, Aliens Exist, The Party Song, Dump Weed, What's My Age Again, All the Small Things, Adam's Song, and Anthem. So I talked about the singles, but some of these, like I feel like I like the kind of drum energy on Don't Leave Me. That's a nice one. This is kind of one where I would go out for the night and that type of stuff for the evening. It's not quite as crazy as All the Small Things or What's My Age Again, but it does have a nice feel towards it. Dump Weed and Aliens Exist are both kind of more manic ones. I kind of like the approach behind those. I mean, really, this is kind of a weekend album. If the I mean, I really was looking for like a song on here that was like could have been the 4th single, but it just really felt like they didn't even attempt to. If I would have had to guess, I would have said it might have been Aliens Exist, but it just seemed kind of far fetched to have kind of seen that. But I do like the kind of instrumentation craziness that's in Dumpweed and Aliens Exist. I do kind of feel like those are Aliens Exist and Dumpweed both kind of have like a similar pitch in terms of their tempo and that type of stuff that I both enjoyed. And I would have to say about those, they really kind of just feel like a nice continual night. I mean, they may not be as distinct as all the small things, but I do think that they're enjoyable just within the sense of that. I'd probably say out of the two of them, I'd say Aliens Exist is probably the more distinct one in there. But I do appreciate, I mean, really, these songs are pretty solid for the most part. It's just the fact that the singles are the distinct part of it, but these are pretty good album cuts. Blink 182 is pretty good at album cuts being able to do it, so it's not too noticeable if the hooks are not quite as catchy as some of these other ones. But another one that has like a real nice head banging moment in it is Anthem. I really like the kind of this is a pretty good chorus in here too. It's probably like good for an album cut. And I feel like there's some headbanging moments in the second verse. It's real nice. I like the kind of craziness of Anthem. And then another one that does feel like a party is kind of the party song. It's just kind of that energy of like there's getting ready to be a party. Hey, there's a party at like 8 o'clock p.m. tonight. You're invited. Let's go. That type stuff. It just kind of feels like it's kind of the energy that I would play this song when it's like 5:45 or something. If the party's at 8 and it's like 5:45 and you're getting stoked and you're getting ready to get pumped and get ready to go to that, this kind of that more energy of the vibe. I mean, I didn't quite see it as the song you listen to when you're at the party and the shindig's kind of going down, but it just kind of seemed like a song to kind of get amped to and get ready for that. Those are some concepts there. Yeah, I just like the energy of the singles is all pretty good, including Adam's song. I mean, even though Adam's song has like a more serious topic in terms of the production and instrumentation on the song, it really is kind of another peppy, kind of upbeat one. It just is kind of like, is this kind of more of like a jaded one? I just feel like that's the whole concept behind that song is it's just kind of, you're a little bit peeved today. Maybe work didn't go that well or something else happened, just kind of in that sort of context as far as just being kind of annoyed for the day, and that's kind of more how I would listen to Adam's song. But yeah, so 8 songs out of 12. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album like an 8 out of 10. I'm just gonna give it a solid 8 because I do like the album or I do like the singles, and I would probably say like Aliens Exist, the party song, and possibly Don't Leave Me would be some ones that I would listen to outside of like my normal single ventures when I would just be checking in with this album. But I would have to say that it's a pretty fulfilling project. I definitely feel like this is probably one of Blink 182's best, and it deserved to go 3 or 4 times platinum. I kind of feel like that's the concept behind it, but it's just kind of, I don't know. I mean, I really, it's just kind of one of those disappointment kind of feels towards it, not because of quality, but just because they didn't pack this album with more hits as far as that kind of went. I mean, 3 singles just feels very brief in terms of like a rock album, especially this early on. I mean, I feel like or not this early, but this kind of in between. I mean, really, their second album, Dude Ranch, I guess only had 1 single. I'm not really sure how many singles that project had, but you would think by this point it just felt like Blink 182 never really broke out. I mean, I feel like it just made sense for it to have 4 singles or something like that. And it really does feel like there's not like a hit that could have been on there. So to kind of slag it for that, that's why I didn't give it like an 8.5 or an 8.75 or something, is because it's missing the very necessary 4th single. I mean, that's how most good rock albums, not that this isn't a good rock album, that's how it kind of goes the distance, is just having all the singles that can do it. But this just feels like this is simply like a dollar short in some cases, just $1 or 2 short in terms of like absolute quality, just because it could have used another hit, especially on the size of all the small things. It simply needed something as far as to back that album up even further. I mean, if you're just going for nostalgia and that type of stuff, I would say obviously this was an MTV warrior of an album, was getting spins every day, was familiar. The songs are distinct, they're earworms. What's My Age Again and all the small things crested, and they had longevity also, but it still is lacking this one more hit to be able to make it go the distance, in my opinion, I would have to say. But it is good. I give it an 8, and I do respect the quality behind it. So the social score, I will go ahead and say that, yeah, I'll give it like probably about an 8 also, just because there are some hits in here, And I do feel like the 1-2 punch of What's My Age Again and All the Small Things is really excellent. Just some good single energy, but in terms of just like hits that are kind of distinct, it's not an All Day and Tomorrow kind of album. But there are some hits in here, depending upon the distinction, how much your buddies are going to know every single one of these, or if they're just going to want to listen to like the heavy hitters, and that's about it. And that's kind of the concept. But I do feel like Dump Weed, Aliens Exist, Anthem are great ones. The Party Song, these are some great ones that kind of carry the energy, but it just doesn't have that complete all the small things kind of chorus in them that kind of is like this you completely that's completely recitable. So that's kind of the concept, but they are good. So it's a good project. So that's kind of the concept. In terms of the future, like supposedly Blink 182 is about to drop another project here pretty soon. I'm hoping that they do because it's been since the fall of 2019. I would like to get more from them. They've been affiliating with MGK and that type of stuff. Travis Barker's been producing and that sort of thing, getting married to like one of the Kardashians. I forget. I think it's Courtney, something like that. But that just kind of happens to kind of be the situation. So I would have to say I'm looking forward to another Blink 182 album. Let's get that in motion and hope for it because this was some good stuff here.